Hello everyone, welcome back to another TrueTan Wrestling video. My name is Tanner, and today we are talking about the Iowa Hawkeyes once again, and well, their more than lackluster season. We all know the heights they reached last year, taking out Penn State and returning to their historic peak, being national champions. However, last season they had some injuries, and some would argue they did not perform to their best abilities to win nationals. This season, however, they just could not keep their full squad healthy, from Spencer Lee having to pull himself from the 2022 season, or Jaden Maner seriously hurting his knee late in his final season campaign. Now, like I said, I've talked about the Iowa Hawkeyes several times on this channel, from their early season struggles to lineup questions to their aftermatch fights. If you have not seen those videos, be sure to like and subscribe and check out the rest of the channel while you're around. However, this video will be all about the hypothetical that I know all wrestling fans love to hear about. So what if the Hawkeyes were 100% healthy this season? Would they have won it again? Well, considering they won it last year with the same exact 10 guys, you would assume so, but Penn State and Michigan both got some heavy upgrades for themselves. So is this technically true? Would Iowa have won it this year? Well, allow me to go weight by weight and give an injury report on the final Iowa lineup, and then discuss what could have happened if they were all 100% healthy. Also, disclaimer, I'm only going to do the 10 guys that wrestled at the end of the season, so I'll leave Spencer Lee out of this for now, but stick around to the end of the video where I'll give my thoughts on whether or not Spencer Lee would have made that much of a mega impact for the Hawks at the end of the season. One last thing, leave a comment on why you think the Iowa squad just couldn't seem to bring it all together this season, and also let me know if you'll think they'll be more fortunate next year from an injury standpoint. Now, let's talk some Iowa wrestling. Not to point out the obvious here, but for also people who might have not noticed, the college season is a serious grind. No team is healthy when it comes to the end of the year in March. Almost every athlete has something they are dealing with, and that is with all major contact sports, especially a sport as physical and demanding as wrestling. However, with that said, what I'm referring to is knick-knack injuries when I'm saying everyone's dealing with something in March. What the Hawkeyes had were serious season-altering injuries that drastically affected the way some of their wrestlers performed. Case in point, Drake Ayala at 125. I know 125 was a strong weight class this season, but you cannot deny his performance started going downhill a little after his shoulder injury, which I believe happened a little bit before the Penn State duel, because that's right around the time he started missing time. Oddly enough, before we were aware of his injuries, his only losses were to Pat McKee of Minnesota, a now two-time All-American, Emily Hansman of Ohio State, who unfortunately did not All-American again this year, but he was doing All-American level wrestling for sure. Easily his best win though was over D'Agostino of Northwestern, who placed 4th this year at Nationals, so that is a serious nice win for a true freshman. Now, I don't want to say he looked bad once he returned with his shoulder brace, but he just didn't look the same. He still looked really good, and he almost beat two-time All-American Barnett of Wisconsin at Big Tens, but once he qualified a spot at Big Tens, he would forfeit out of that tournament, and then he would go 1-2 at Nationals. Super unfortunate for Ayala's first year, because I truly believe he had the abilities to All-American. That is how good that kid is when he is healthy. I'm excited to see him at Opens again next year, since more than likely Spencer Lee is expected to come back into the lineup, and that year of development and recovery from his shoulder surgery that he may or may not be getting will do wonders for him, especially having time in the Iowa lineup. I'm sure that did wonders for his development too. At 133, we had Austin DeSanto, who had some kind of hand injury all season, and I think almost every match he was taped up. This resulted in some matches he was just a little less productive than what we're used to seeing, but that's only my opinion. I think at Nationals he wrestled right to his ability, and placing 3rd for his 2nd year in a row is no easy feat, so he did his part for the Hawkeye lineup. I wish I could really say more besides he just had a hand taped all season, but this video is all about the injured Hawks, so moving right along to 141. Ironman is a big one to talk about, because in the beginning of the season, Jaden looked fine and normal blowing through people. Then he started having close/competitive matches, but he was still winning, and he gave Nick Lee a close match during the duel. But then at Big Tens, he came with a leg brace on, which is never good to see, but he did make the finals and would forfeit eventually to Nick Lee in those finals, which was unfortunate to see from a fan and wrestling perspective, but it clearly showed that there was a major concern within the Iowa room. Those concerns would be true with Ironman seriously not looking himself, losing to Cinderella Story Clark of UNC in the 2nd round of Nationals. He would beat D'Amelio on the backside again to stay alive, but then he would sadly injury default halfway through his match against Michich of Michigan, and that would be the end of his long, fun career. I said this in my NCAA recap, but thank you again, Jane, for being such a fun wrestler to watch. Some of those Yanni versus Ironman matches were wild. I loved it. So losing a possible low All-American Ayala and dropping huge finalist points in Ironman really can't stress this enough, really hurt the Iowa team and their chances to make any sort of run at a team title. This one was just too big of a blow for the Hawks to ever really overcome in the grand scheme of things. The next few weights there isn't much injury talk per se, just some down performances and unfortunate bracket placement. Maner at 149 would drop his third quarterfinal match of his career and then lose to the 6th seed in the round of 12, so that was unpredictable and super unfortunate for him. Young at 157 had an up and down year for sure, and as the 9 seed and a returning All-American, you would think he might slip into that All-American round. But unfortunate for him, 1 seed Carr from Iowa State, the returning national champ, will get upset and knock Young out of All-American contention on the backside in the round of 16. Finally, Marinelli, the former leg brace man himself, would lose in his third quarterfinal of his career, but would battle back to take 5th, only losing to the 3rd and 4th place finishers to end Marinelli's long career. I said it to Jay and Ironman, so I'm definitely going to say it to Alex Marinelli, thank you for the long and fun career. I will for sure miss watching you in a Hawkeye singlet, but now I can watch you in a Hawkeye Wrestling Club singlet, I guess. Like I said, none of these were really injury problems that caused these underperformances, just partially bad luck. But if we look at all these weights from a best case scenario, these weights could have seriously turned the tide. I'm sure Marinelli could have possibly made the finals or heck even won the tournament. Unfortunately never lived up to those expectations, but I'm sure he could have won this tournament. Marin had a great season and he could have easily slipped into a 5 to 8 placement range. I mean, he was seated there anyway. And the same is true for Young, who has placed in that range twice before. I just want to put this out there right now since we're about halfway through. This video is not made to put Iowa down. I honestly love the program. They will forever be an historical juggernaut, always in the running to win a team title. I mean, they had all these things go wrong for them and they still came home with a 3rd place trophy. I just noticed, and I'm sure I wasn't the only one who noticed, that for some reason they just weren't to their standards at nationals, but that just happens sometimes. Alright, no more disclaimers. Let's move on to 174, which also has a few noticeable points with more than just one guy. For starters, we had Michael Kemmer, the returning national runner-up and several-time All-American. He did outplace his seed, placing 4th with his 5th place seed, but coming into the season, I'm sure we all thought we could just pencil him in for the national finals, which really shows that injuries stink. Also, Kemmer missed basically all the beginning of the season and started competing essentially during the Big Ten portion of the schedule. He clearly had a major shoulder injury, but honestly, he still looked pretty solid most of the season, and he took Starocki to the wire in their match at the duel. However, during his Big Ten match against Ethan Smith, his shoulder would pop out once again. He would finish that match, but honestly, he kind of just looked a little off for the remainder of that postseason. Granted, Michael Kemmer looking a little off just means instead of making a national finals, he places 4th at nationals, beating several good wrestlers, but you all know what I mean. Also, the fill-in for him during the first half of the year was Nelson Brands, who also had a shoulder injury that kept him out from competing the last half of the season. This is super unfortunate for him, but the massive takeaway was why exactly did he drop to 174 in the first place, which actually transitions us right into 184. Like I said, Nelson Brands filled in at 174 for Michael Kemmer during his early season leave. In the meantime, Abe Assad was mostly a starter at 184, and he had an alright season for the Hawks, which continues to beg the question, if they knew Michael Kemmer would be back, why would they make Nelson Brands drop down to 174 when he has a way better chance of starting at 184 against a guy he's beat in a freestyle wrestle-off? My only assumption is that maybe they thought Michael Kemmer would not return this season, but due to Brands' injury and Kemmer returning, we never really got the answer to this plan. Also, I know Nelson Brands was apparently super light for 184 last year, so maybe he just got sick of trying to bulk up and just said, hey, I'm going 174. Also, for a while, 184, Miles Wilson was starting over Abe Assad, but I believe Wilson also got injured throughout the season after seeing a massive leg brace on him during the Oklahoma State dual warm-up this season. There was also a theory that Assad was injured last year because he didn't wrestle at all, even in the extra matches, and that's the reason we saw Nelson Brands as the 184 starter last year. Of course, that is all speculations, but that's just some things I heard. 197 was the most positive outcome for the Hawkeyes at NCAAs, with Jacob Warner being the only finalist and highest place winner. He could not bring it all together, but he beat some super elite guys at this tournament to make his first national finals. He lost a few matches during the year, giving up points in the third, but he looked great entering this match. And finally, there was Cassiope at 285, who honestly had a great season, but was just placed in the wrong spot in the final bracket. Cassiope had Jordan Wood of Lehigh in the quarterfinals, and that was a tight match at Collegiate Duels this year, and Wood wrestled the tournament of his life and looked the best I've ever seen him, so that kind of stunk for the Hawkeye fans. Then he would finally see Paris of Michigan again on the backside of this tournament, and he's never beat him in college, so he dropped down to the 7th place match, where he once again beat first-time All-American Christian Lance of Nebraska. Fun fact, Lance actually used to wrestle at a Division II school before he wrestled at Nebraska. So that was fun, and I bet some of you didn't know that. But speaking of fun, the Hawkeyes National Tournament was probably anything but that. They did get a finalist, so that was pretty cool to watch, but besides that, it was full of sad endings and beat up wrestlers just trying their best. With that said, next year hopefully we can see Spencer Lee back in action for his final season, where he can hopefully become a 4-time national champ. Even with Spencer Lee, the Hawks probably wouldn't have won it. However, they would have came very close to second, if not completely taking over the second place spot with Spencer Lee's 20 plus bonus points. Spencer's surgery is pretty serious on both ACLs, but I saw him at the Rudis card and he seemed to be walking pretty well, and I know more goes into it than just walking, but it's a hopeful start for sure. Well everyone, that was my thoughts and speculations on the ending for the Hawkeyes this season. Unfortunately, they cannot repeat their great season from last year, especially since they will not be returning everyone like this year, and we will see a really new Hawkeye squad entering the next season. If I missed anything in this breakdown, feel free to leave me a comment in the comment section below, and be sure to like and subscribe for more content in the future. Till next time everyone, this is Tanner from TrueTan Wrestling, and I am out. I will see you in the next one.